Jack Subby coming to you live with breaking news. Massive scoop from Catherine Herridge. You guys know that I'm working on a variety of different stories today, but I wanted to come to you live with this because it is breaking news and because it's massive and because I have a background in this where I can actually explain unmaskings and some of this to y'all. So Catherine Herridge, and I say that as someone, by the way, and before I even get into the story, let's go back to the beginning so we can do our normal talk. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard this afternoon's edition of Poso Nation. People know my background, and I want to just remind everybody. So, if you're a new listener, what my background is. I was a Navy intelligence officer. I served at Guantanamo Bay 1 year as an interrogator analyst, then in the J2X. Then I went on to the intelligence community. That previously was a deployment through the Defense Intelligence Agency when General Flynn was the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency. Dennis McDonough, the president's chief of staff, is someone that I actually had the opportunity to brief while I was at Guantanamo Bay, as well as Senator John McCain and Senator Dianne Feinstein, among other senior officials, congressmen, etc., who I briefed when they came down for various trips. Michelle Bachmann actually came down and visited when I was there, so I got to talk with her. She came right in the facility and got as close as she could to a real live interrogation. So Michelle Bachmann, yeah, I remember that. And so then I came back, worked in the intelligence community for a long time, ended up becoming an officer, and did a lot of work specifically regarding East Asia. And you guys know that I'm a Mandarin linguist, so no real surprises there, which focus I had. So looking now at this situation, there's a lot of people who talk about what went on in 2016 and 2017 in the intelligence community. And there's certainly going to be a lot of people who are going to comment on this, but how many of them can actually tell you that they were in the intelligence community in 2016 and 2017 and to give comment on this? And for the first half of 2016, I was actually deployed. I was not in the country. I was outside of the country. I was the intelligence director for Naval Expeditionary Forces Command Task Force 75. Task Force 75 focuses on threats in the Indo-Asia Pacific area. So we're talking about 7th Fleet. We're 7th Fleet Task Force, hence the 75, number 7, and really focusing on expeditionary combat. So that's your Riverines, that's your CBs, that's your EOD. And so I was the intelligence director for that command, and obviously focused on the entirety of the Asia Pacific region. Now they call it the Indo-Asia Pacific region, but India was, of course, part of our focus at that time. So, and again, I say all this to remind you that, and for folks who didn't know, that this is my world. Okay, this is my world. So here's the declassified document that Rick Grinnell, who's now the director of national intelligence, has declassified. It was then given to the Department of Justice. There was essentially a civil war going on between the DOJ and the DNI regarding all of this. That's something I heard earlier today. And now Catherine Herridge has gotten herself a copy of that. So I do not know how she got her copy, but I do know that Catherine Herridge is probably the best source national security reporter in the entire town, in all of Washington, D.C. So when Catherine's putting something out, you can take it to bank. So here's what it says. Below is a list of recipients who may have received Lieutenant General Flynn's identity in response to a request processed between 8 November 2016 and 31 January 2017. So we're talking about we're saying 8 November 2016. That is just after the election, of course. And then 31 January. So that's just after January 20th when President Trump took office. So that's when he was inaugurated. We also know that the morning of January 20th, that's when Susan Rice wrote an email to herself memorializing a conversation that took place in the Oval Office between Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and James Comey. I believe Clapper was there as well, regarding the Flynn investigation. Okay, so we're going to continue. They're unmasking an identity that has been generically referred to in NSA foreign surveillance report. Only certain personnel are authorized to submit unmasking requests into the NSA system. In this case, 16 authorized individuals requested unmaskings for X, doesn't say, it's blacked out, redacted, different NSA intelligence reports for select identified principals. So let me give you some context that I don't think anybody else is going to give you today. What is unmasking? What does that mean? What does unmasking mean? Unmasking doesn't mean leaking. I'm going to be very clear about that to make sure you understand the distinction. Unmasking is not leaking. Unmasking does not mean you're declassifying it like Rick Grinnell did. Okay, Rick Grinnell declassified this. This was at the secret no foreign level. Rick Grinnell has declassified it to the unclassified level. Otherwise, I would be breaking down the intelligence classified system by actually talking about it. So what it is. So when you have a U.S. person in intelligence reporting, so U.S. code. Does anyone know the executive order that says that the U.S. intelligence community cannot use their powers against U.S. persons? Which executive order was signed by Reagan? I'll give you that. That's a clue. Says that U.S. persons cannot be collected on by the intelligence community without a FISA. EO, no, I see a couple names in there. No, EO 12333. EO 12333. So every intelligence officer, every intelligence professional who knows what they're doing, is worth their salt, knows that EO 12333 is the 12333 is the code that says that U.S. persons, which includes U.S. organizations, cannot be targeted directly by the intelligence community. So EO 12333. This is the big one. And we used to have a card that we would actually carry. You would carry it in your my wallet. So I don't have it on me, but you would carry it in your wallet. That would kind of remind you what 12333 was, or you could put it up on your desk. You could put 12333. That's the code. That's what we got to go by, 12333. So what an unmasking does, though. Now, obviously, look, the NSA. Here's the issue with the NSA. The NSA is constantly targeting individuals throughout the world. They're targeting foreign diplomats. They're targeting foreign negotiators. But among others, bad guys, terrorists, drug dealers, weapons proliferators, gray arms, you name it, right? And of course, military communications. It's all public information, not revealing anything, obviously. However, I think everybody knows what the NSA does at this point. However, sometimes U.S. persons do get caught up in what's known as NSA raw traffic. They get caught up in the raw reporting. And so there's a difference between the actual, you've ever seen The Wire? I've been talking about that a lot recently. So if you've ever seen, how to explain this? You're not going to get a transcript of the actual phone call that was put out, right? You're not just going to get a word for word transcript. You're going to get a summary. You're going to get a gist. You're going to get usually when you're briefing this to a principal, you're providing a report for higher ups. What you're doing is you're making a summary of that phone call, and then you're reporting it forward. But you're not revealing every single word that was put out in that phone call. However, the other thing that they're going to do is they are going to use a term like person one or U.S. person one or U.S. person two as a cover for the identity of the U.S. person that would be in the report. And again, you guys can all read the report. I'm not doing a breakdown of the report itself. I'm trying to give you the context. So you can understand the report that nobody else is going to do today. So I'm going to give you my intelligence perspective on this. So what's going on here, what seems to me, is that there's multiple reports. There's actually multiple reports. And I'm blocking trolls because I have no time for you guys today right now. This is serious business. There are multiple reports about Flynn, or there are multiple reports that may have mentioned Flynn. All right. So the number of different NSA intelligence reports for select identified principals were put out in there. And so it goes to say, and we know that Flynn was making a number of phone calls during this time. So my wonder is it possible that they were spying on all of Flynn's phone calls and not just the one with the Russian ambassador, right? Because this is what I'm saying is you got to understand how to read this thing. You got to understand how to read this. This isn't just one phone call, right? If there's multiple reports on this thing, that means that there's multiple phone calls. You get it? So we know that multiple individuals were requesting this thing. Is that possible? Of course it's possible. I also want to keep in mind, folks, I want to keep in mind, this is not illegal, right? This is a legal procedure. If you have authorization to unmask, which principal members of the national security function of the United States would have, which is given by the president, right? It was given by President Barack Obama. They do have authority to unmask. What they don't have authority to do is leak that to the Washington Post or to leak that to the press. So the leaking of the name and the contents of the phone call is illegal, but the actual unmasking is not itself illegal the way they did it. But you got to understand that this was done without a warrant. And it's what's known as parallel reconstruction, in a sense, where they were listening through indirect collection. So indirect collection means they weren't tracking Flynn, but they were tracking the people that Flynn was calling. And since Flynn was calling other ambassadors, right, in his role as the incoming national security advisor, and the fact that they were listening to those, it's highly unorthodox. It's absolutely highly unorthodox. And what they then did was try to turn that into a prosecution by taking this information and going to Sally Yates with it regarding the Logan Act. And that is where obviously you're seeing the criminalization of political differences come in. So let's see what else. Let's go through the dirty, what is it, the 16? The dirty 16. Samantha Power, James Clapper, Kelly Degnan, John Phillips, the ambassador to Italy, CIA Director John Brennan on December 14th, 2016 and December 15th, 2016, my birthday, the 15th of December. OIA Director Patrick Conlon, Secretary of the Treasury Jacob Lew, Acting Assistant Secretary of the Treasury Arthur Danny McGlynn, Acting Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Treasury Mike Neufeld, Deputy Secretary of the Treasury Sarah Raskin, Undersecretary of Treasury Nathan Sheets. Now, I also want to point out, because they were talking about sanctions, right? And that's why you're seeing Treasury names on this, because they were talking about sanctions on the call. We know they were talking about sanctions on the call. And Flynn admitted they were talking about sanctions on the call. They say he lied about it, but he didn't. And the fact that they were talking about sanctions, that's why Treasury is getting involved here. That's why Treasury was asking about those reports. So you've got another Undersecretary of the Treasury, Adam Shubin, the U.S. NATO Defense Advisor, Mr. Robert Bell, U.S. Representative to the NATO Military Committee, Vice Admiral Christensen. Here you go. And a lot of this is on December 15th, by the way. I want to go back. So that may actually be, because there's so much information, so many of these dates are around December 14th, December 15th, again, my birthday. It may have been that was around the date. Do we have the date of the actual phone? Does anyone have the actual date of the phone call? I don't have that information in front of me. But it looks like all of this activity was going around. And of course, it's on my birthday, right? All right, simulation. Of course, it's on my birthday. On my birthday, the day of right after the election, the year of the election, the same day that Megyn Kelly is on Fox News defaming me. That's where we get this. So, okay, someone's saying the phone call is the 28th or the 29th. Yeah, Megyn Kelly said I was a mass shooter. Yeah, not true. Defamation. And so I was thinking as well that Flynn's phone call was later in December. So whatever they're looking at on the 15th, that's something else, because Flynn's phone call was later. It was the 28th, right? I remember it being close to New Year's Eve. I remember it being close to New Year's. And yeah, I've seen a lot of people saying December 28th. So whatever was going on December 15th means to tell me that there were more unmaskings or potentially more unmaskings that were going on. Let's continue. Chief of the Syria Group, that's a CIA position, so that's redacted. December 15th, Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, James Comey. December 15th, Deputy Assistant Director of NEMC. December 15th, NATO Office of the Defense Advisor Policy for Russia, Lieutenant Colonel Paul Gearing. December 15th, U.S. NATO Advisor to Ambassador Douglas Lute. December 15th, U.S. NATO Deputy, DFAD, Mr. James Hutch. December 15th, another chief of the Syria Group. Interesting. December 15th, U.S. Deputy Chief of Mission to NATO, Mr. Leitzberger. December 15th, U.S. Permanent Representative to NATO, Ambassador Douglas Lute. December 15th, U.S. Department of Energy Executive Briefer, U.S. NATO Political Officer, Mr. Scott Parrish. December 15th, this whole page, December 15th. U.S. DOE Deputy Secretary of Energy, Elizabeth Sherwood Randall. December 15th, U.S. Department of Energy Executive Briefer. So the Executive Briefer, by the way, is the person that would be briefing the report. So that's the person who's briefing the report forward. That's briefing it to the principal. So that means they're requesting the unmasking so that when they go to perform the briefing, they understand who else they can talk to. I'm not Paul Allen, but you may recognize me because we wear the same suits and we go to the same barber, although my haircut is slightly better than his. December 15th, U.S. NATO Political Advisor, Mr. Tamir Wesser. There's 3 names that are redacted: Chief of Staff, CMO, and Deputy Chief of Staff. My guess with that redaction, that looks like CIA to me. December 16th, U.S. Ambassador to Russia, John Teft. Another one redacted, CMO, December 16th. So we're on December 16th again. Now we jump ahead. U.S. Ambassador to Turkey, Ambassador Bass. That's on December 28th. Now we get into some big names. January 5th, 2017. Chief of Staff to the President of the United States, Dennis McDonough. Dennis McDonough is a guy I've met. I've briefed him. I think he's very professional. I think he's very, very intelligent. And he is also very loyal to his president, very loyal to Barack Obama. And that is, that was certainly his job as chief of staff. And that is what he did. He's also the guy who talked Obama out of doing the Syria strikes back during the Red Line. I think you remember all that. And so it was 2013. So yeah, Dennis McDonough, the chief of staff of the president of the United States, is there. So, there's only one question. I think you guys know who the recipient would be of the information if Dennis McDonough is asking for that. Deputy Director of National Intelligence for Intelligence Integration, Michael Dempsey, 7 Jan 17. Principal Deputy Director of National Intelligence, Stephanie L. O'Sullivan, 7 Jan 17. Another CIA from 10 January. And then the very final name, because a lot of this is being done in chronological order. So it starts 30 November with Samantha Power all the way up to 12 Jan. So 12 January 2017, January 12th, Vice President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden. And I want to be clear about this, by the way, that even though it says Biden's name on there, that doesn't mean that Biden personally requested it. But most likely the way this happened was that somebody in Biden's office made the request and that Joe Biden signed off on the request. So Joe Biden authorized that request for someone in his staff. It's kind of like when President Trump makes those jokes about Biden not being the one who actually wrote those tweets. It's kind of similar to that. I don't think that Joe Biden was actually sitting there unmasking General Flynn, but it looks like someone in his office was, and that Biden gave them the clearance to do so. Now, just to reiterate the disclaimer that was put out at the top of this. They are not confirming that all of these people did receive General Flynn's identity. But they may have received it due to their request. It's also possible that they were looking for unmasking in other parts of the document because there may be other U.S. individuals, right? I don't have these documents. I don't have access to these documents. And so I don't know exactly what the finished product looks like, but it's possible there could be other people and other conversations that were involved in this. But the real question then becomes then for those of us who, even though I do understand how the system works, I don't understand because I don't have enough information. Of course, we're not getting, yes, they did follow the legal process for this, but of course, we're not getting the information as to what all the phone calls were and not what other reports were unmasked. That is why there's two options here. First is that Grinnell should continue declassifying things, and I would argue and urge him to do so. I think that he's done an admirable job with that, and I think that he should continue to declassify this information so we can find out exactly what went on with the completely unjustified investigation and political and partisan investigation into General Flynn. And then secondly, the other option is, of course, hey, we got a list of names. Start talking, right? Bring them before the Senate Intel Committee, have a classified hearing, and start asking them behind closed doors, what exactly were you up to? Why were you conducting these unmaskings? We have your name, we have the dates, we have the date of the report. All right, so it's, and by the way, Samantha Power has some from January 11th, 2017. So this is over the course of about 3 months that they're doing this. And so, okay, so if someone says Rand Paul is calling Grinnell in to testify, yeah, I think that would be a good example. I think Grinnell has shown himself to be, certainly on the side of transparency, certainly on the side of wanting to reform the intelligence community. And so really getting Grinnell to come forward is going to be helpful. But at the same time, if he's doing that in an unclassified setting, it's possible that he's going to run up against a wall because DNI Grinnell isn't going to be able to talk past that firewall of classified and unclassified information if he's doing so in an unclassified public environment. So I want to be very clear and make sure everyone understands that, because these reports that we're talking about have not been declassified. These phone calls have not been declassified. This information has not been declassified. So it is possible that there's other information in these reports that we don't even know about yet. And it could have nothing to do with Flynn, right? It could be, you could be looking at summary reports that are, kind of a highlight of different things. And so, no, I highly commend Rick Grinnell for his stance in terms of transparency and in doing the work that I believe the American people put their trust in him for, to be able to declassify things. And by the way, as somebody who works in media, of course, I want everything declassified as much as possible. I've always said that. Please declassify every single thing that you have, right? That's me just talking from a pure media perspective. And hats off to Catherine Herridge for this massive scoop that she has today, because this is tremendous, absolutely tremendous scoop for Catherine Herridge, and another one that she can really, really, really hang her hat on, because this is quite fantastic. But what's interesting is one of the names that you don't see on here, and I looked through it a few times. I just read the entire list. Susan Rice. We don't see the name Susan Rice on this, and that does seem to be an interesting omission. Quite an interesting omission. So how would Susan Rice not have known about this? Now, it's possible that Susan Rice, now, and here's a simple example of how this could have happened, right? Susan Rice could have said, hey, I want this declassified, and then Obama goes to McDonough and says, okay, make the request, right? So you got to understand that all of this works at that level. They don't always put their names on everything, right? They don't always put their names on every request. So if you don't want your name on something, you just go to someone else and then their name's on it, but you still get the information, right? You still get the information. And by the way, of course, the President of the United States, no one understands. Huge shout out, no one understands. Of course, the President of the United States does have legal ability to declassify whatever the commander-in-chief sees fit to do so. However, the specific point that I think everybody is is getting at here is not whether or not he had the ability to order the unmaskings or had the legal ability to do this, but did they do these unmaskings because they were trying to find out what was happening? Were they just trying to, from a good faith perspective, trying to understand what was happening in the diplomatic realm? Or were they vindictively trying to go after Lieutenant General Flynn? Because keep in mind, this is all after the election. Let me go back and check. Yeah, November 8th. This is all happening after the election. So this administration knows that they're on the way out. This is their transition period too. Now that's a very important point, a key point that I think everybody's missing, is that their defense is that they were just trying to work on diplomacy and they were just trying to understand what was going on diplomatically around the world. Well, why? Why were you so concerned? You were done. You were out. You were leaving, right? You were already on your way out of Washington, D.C. So, yes, of course, I understand that there's some that you want to make sure that you're leaving on the right, leaving things set right. But again, you're unmasking an individual who's a member of your transition, right? Someone that you're transitioning with. This is who Susan Rice, right? You can go see the pictures. Go look at those pictures of Susan Rice holding the transition ceremony with General Flynn. So she had been spying on him, and he didn't know the entire time. And you see the fake smile on her face in those pictures. I go back and look at those, and it's just, you see the fake plastic smile that's up there, and it's really sad to know that to know what they were doing. And the idea that they actually thought that he would, these are smart people we're talking about. These are not stupid people. These are not foolish people that we're talking about here. They understand how the system works. They understand very well how to do things legally. And yet, when you hear those comments, like Susan Rice saying, well, he was so worried about China, I assumed he must be an agent of Russia. Does that sound like a credible statement to you? Does that sound like something that a serious person or a serious individual would say? No, certainly not. Does it sound like something that a smart person would say? No, certainly not. Does it sound like someone who's trying to cover their tracks would say? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, we seriously thought Flynn was a Russian spy. Seriously? 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 Okay, Susan. I'm going to give a huge throw out to okay, Susan on that one. Yeah. Okay, Susan. Sure. Yeah, right. The same person who lied about Benghazi, the same person who lied on TV, and the same person who's lying now. They're all liars, right? We know they're liars. They have a history of lying and spreading hoaxes. It's. And by the way, Barack Obama also has a history of spying. We know he spied on Angela Merkel's private cell phone. We know he spied on James Rosen, a friend of mine actually. We know that he spied on Associated Press reporters. We know about all this. What am I drinking? I'm currently drinking Super Coffee. So Super Coffee is super coffee with protein and MCT oil, naturally sweetened with vanilla, 0 grams sugar. It's only 80 calories with 10 grams of protein as well. So yeah, you're looking, it's only 1 carb in the entire bottle. Only 1 carb in the entire bottle. No peanut butter. No peanut butter today. No peanut butter today. It's very good stuff. Super coffee. So that's what am I saying? No affiliates, no sponsorships, etc. I just like it. I just like it a lot. Yeah, really good. So it's good, no carb iced coffee, because it's really hard to find an iced coffee that doesn't have carbs in it. So when you're looking for something like that, that's why you look for it. Where is it? It says distributed by Keto Life Inc., New York, New York. So out of New York. Organic coffee, zero sugar, protein, MCT oil, monk fruit, no lactose, no gluten, no carrageenan. I have to look that one up. And no sugar alcohol either. 200 grams of caffeine, milligrams of caffeine. 200 milligrams of caffeine, not 200 grams. So 200 milligrams of caffeine. I like it. Good stuff. But I drink it out of my cup. Is there soy? I don't think so. No. Colombian coffee, whey protein, coconut oil, monk fruit, vanilla flavor, potassium phosphate, gel and gum, organic green coffee, and caffeine. Yeah, no soy. Who is accusing me of drinking soy? Seriously? Get out of here. Get out of here. No soy. Questions? Does anyone have any other questions about this situation? Because it is complicated, it is complex, and I'm not talking about the coffee. I'm talking about the. I ain't no soy boy. I ain't no soy boy. Get out of here. Get out of here with that. Get on out of here with that. No, absolutely not. Out. Hit the road. Hit the road. No soy. You're in the no soy zone. You're in the no soy zone. Vice President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden. Can I step by step the unmasking process? Well, I mean, it's pretty clear. It's pretty quick, actually. The principal requests it to the analyst. The analyst makes the request in the system, and then they generate a new report and send it back to the principal. It's pretty simple. It's not. There's not really much to it. I mean, it's you. How much am I allowed to talk about that? I mean, like they have the information. You got to understand. They have the information when they listen to the call in real time about who's talking, right? You can see which phone number is calling which phone. Again, watch The Wire if you want a really good example of this. You can see which phone number is talking to which phone number. All right, this is the NSA we're talking about, right, folks? So just look it up, and you can see they're calling, one phone number to the other phone number. It's the point is that it's